Welcome to Kiki's Chat Show. Today is Wednesday the 30th. Today is actually the last day of my beloved September 2020. And today we have to discuss something that is very important to a lot of people. Now, the thought for today is you are your brother's keeper. People don't believe that, but you are. You are your brother's keeper. And hold that thought while we have today's discussion. Today we're talking about siblings fighting over. I'm just telling you it as it is. Siblings fighting over property law. We're talking about how a parent will work hard and leave things for all their children, only for the children to squabble, the family to break up. Now, is that what parents really wanted? I have with me today, in fact, I am delighted today to introduce to you Kofi Asma. Now, Kofi Asma is a managing partner of Jando Asma & Co. He's a director of the African Economic Development Center, and he speaks at a lot of women's events. He's actually a co-chair for the Ghanaian Hungarian Business Council. He's a lawyer, a serial entrepreneur, and deeply committed to narrowing the divide between developed countries and emerging nations by promoting more foreign direct investment from the US and Europe into Africa. He is a director of the, as I said, African Economic Development Center of Atlanta, Georgia. Did you live there before?
Yes, I have. I spent significant time in Atlanta, yes.
Kofi Asma is a member of the American Bar Association, Ghana Bar Association, International Bar Association, and a proud member of the Rotary Club. Welcome to Kiki's Chat Show.
Thank you very much, Kiki, for having me. I'm delighted to be here, and I'd like to say good evening to everyone listening in or watching in.
Yeah. Good evening, people. Today's subject is a little bit tough to discuss. I do have another guest coming, but she has not got here yet, which is fine. So Kofi and I are going to start talking about, what are we talking about? Property law, basically, in its different settings. But is it possible for you, without too much waffling about, for you to explain to us, me and the listeners all together, the history of inheritance? What is the whole thing about inheritance?
Okay, so inheritance relates to the rights that everyone who inherits something from somebody else, usually from your family, be it your parents, your uncle, your auntie, your close relative, or indeed it could be from someone that's not even related to you. And there are laws governing how this inheritance can be managed. In Ghana, the primary laws relating to inheritance will be a 1992 constitution. It would be the Administration of Estates Act, 1963. It would also be the Interstate Succession Law of 1985, what is popularly known as the PNEC Law 111. And the Marriages Act, because you will find out that very often when it comes to inheritance issues, it is looked at within the family context. And I believe that is the context within which we're going to speak tonight. So basically, inheritance relates to property that is passed on to someone else, either by way of a gift or in the case of a will, where there's a written will. And in the absence of a will, the laws governing how the estate will be managed will be covered by PNDC Law 1985. Law is 111. That, in a nutshell, is the area that we're speaking about this evening.
I see. Now, in view of this, do people abide by these laws? Are these laws, do people actually abide by them and know that there is a law? The person either left an estate or did not leave anything, or didn't actually write anything.
Okay, so generally, if you write a will, then it means you want to set out a term on which your property will devolve when you are no longer here with us or you pass away. During your lifetime, it is possible to give away property or to make an inheritance. Usually, this is done either by a gift or by setting up a trust, where, say, for example, there are children involved. They haven't reached the age of majority, age of 18, and you want to leave property for them. Typically, you will set up a trust. Now, if you don't give out this property in your lifetime, then you want to put it in a will. But very often, people don't write wills. I find that a lot of people assume that when you prepare a will, then it's some way of maybe quickening the time of your departure from earth. And also, a lot of people want to wait till much later on when they believe they will have more property before they prepare a will or ask a lawyer to help them to prepare a will. In truth, my advice to everyone listening or watching would be that you should try and draft or get a lawyer to help you to draft a will, because it is very, very important that how your property is devised the way you want it to be devised. Because if you don't write a will, then it means you have died intestate. If you write a will, it means you died testate, and therefore you are the testator of the will. If you die intestate, the laws governing it are in PNDC Law 111. And PNDC Law 111 essentially came into force because under our cultural system, our customary law, the customary laws did not always recognize the rights of the spouses and the children, which we call the nuclear or the immediate family. The extended family have a more important role, or had a more important role to play than the next of kin, that is the spouse or the children. And so this law was written to protect the inheritance rights of spouses and children primarily. And there are many formulas on how the property should be devised. But the most important thing to note is that priority was always given to the spouse or the spouses and the children, and in some cases to the parents of the deceased person, and whatever remedial amounts are left to the family. And that formula is contained within the law. Now, if you die without having any children, then your property will be governed by the Administrator General, which is a department under the Registrar General's department. So essentially, once you have property and you pass away and you don't have a will, then this property is going to be devised or going to be shared per the interstate succession law, PNDC law 111.
I see. So when you die interstate and you have, for example, this is a man, wife, children, and you die interstate and you have and you didn't leave a will. Yeah, of course, that's why it's interstate. And then can your wife then write a will? Because
Okay.
you died, you didn't leave a will, but your wife is there. Can she then leave a will? That's, you know.
Okay, I think we're going ahead of ourselves. So let's go. First step is when there's property,
Yeah.
and you die under the interstate succession law, it shows you the formula for sharing the property.
Okay.
You still need to go to court. You apply for what is called the letters of administration.
Okay.
And then when you are granted letters of administration by the court, and usually in applying for letters of administration, the court will ask for 2 administrators. Of course, there are exceptions to this, but usually there are 2 administrators, being the spouse and one of the children, and preferably maybe the eldest child of the marriage. But any of the children can act as an administrator. Then, in addition to these 2, in practice, there are many instances where the family still has a role to play, because let's say the marriage was conducted under the customary law, and therefore in applying for letters of administration, the court may request that there also be an affidavit from the head of the family recognizing that these are the 2 persons who have been appointed to administer the estate of the deceased.
Okay.
So when you do that, if there's immovable property, you will need to, then appointed administrators will need to prepare what we call the vesting assents and vest the property into the beneficiaries of the estate according to the PNDC law 111. So these are steps that have to be taken. Now, I believe your question is, what if the spouse and the children do not apply for letters of administration?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, or let's say if they do not apply for letters of administration, then in that case, there's not much that the law can do for them if the wife passes away. So we have to go step by step. This is how the property is supposed to be administered. If they do not apply, and let's say the spouse now passes away, then it's the successor of the spouse who will now have to apply for letters of administration based again on the formula in PNDC law 111. So if your question is where there's no will and there's interstate succession, then the next step is that letters of administration must be applied for. The wife will not be preparing a will. She will only be applying to the court for letters of administration to administer the estate. That would be the answer to the question.
Right. Now, people, I have another guest on the show. Her name is Nana Adjoa Akomensa, and she is somebody who also, she's lived in Europe for many years. She's worked for the UN, WHO, was part of the peacekeeping force in Sarajevo, and she's now back in Ghana and is living there. She was with her mother until her mother passed away. And she has a short story to tell. And from that story, we're going to try and work out what she can do really with her property. Now, just a minute while I unmute her, and then we can talk. Welcome to the show, Nanajwa. Are you still mute?
Hear me clearly.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. We can hear you now.
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you clearly. Yeah.
So welcome to the show, and that's Kofi Asma, my friend who is a lawyer, who is very versed in law.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Fantastic.
Great,
Yeah.
great to have you here.
She had traffic problems. That's why she's here. There was traffic on the road. So she's now
all is well.
Yes.
Now, Nanajwa,
it's been going on for about 10 years now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
All is well.
We've been talking about property. Kofi has explained to us the meaning of, what happens when a person leaves a will, what happens when a person doesn't leave a will, and that's interstate. And he's also explained interstate law. He's explained how if the person lives and then dies without a will but has property, and you can go apply for letters of administration. Is that right? I'm understanding that. And then,
That's
right.
So
then the family. So, what is it that you want to share with my listeners? You must remember not to mention names so that we don't get sued. She's gone off. She's off. Anyway, while she tries to get back on air, another question I've been meaning to ask you is, what are the real causes of family disputes over property? Because I can give you an example so that you help me with that. There is this family, and in that family, one son was very clever, and they couldn't afford to send all of them to school. So they sent him to school, and he became a very prominent gentleman. He was very intelligent indeed. He went through all the situation, primary school, secondary school. He was getting prizes. He went to university. And, some of the family members sold their land to help him to get educated. When he did get educated, he became a very prominent member of society. He did best because he was in gratitude. He knew who had helped him.
Sure.
And then life went on. He was a very rich man. He had children, and everything was fine. When he died, his family, then his side of the family, tried to turf his wife and children out of the house. They tried to own everything. They took even his shoes from the widow because they felt that they had rights. They put him through school. They did all the things for him to become prominent. His wife and children have enjoyed, and now it's their turn to enjoy.
Okay, so if this happened after the coming into force of the PNDC Law 111, then the spouse, his wife, and the children can apply for letters of administration.
Okay.
And if they apply for letters of administration and it is granted by the courts in Ghana, the High Court, then they will now be clothed with capacity to administer the estate. I believe that the challenge they will have is that perhaps by the time they are applying for the letters of administration, they would have already been thrown out of the property, and the property would have already been shared. And therefore, advice to them, as would be to anybody else, is that the moment you have a challenge, you should try and get a lawyer involved. Because if right from the moment that her husband passed away, I say, for example, have been consulted, there are certain applications that they can make to court to prevent the family from removing the property and beginning to enjoy the property, as it were. And if the family went ahead to remove the property or to begin to dissipate the property, then they could be held in contempt of court. Because if the court has ordered that these are the persons that must administer the estate, and you make any action or take any action which is contrary to the orders which have been made to the court, you can go back to court and inform the court that these persons are trying to bring the court order into disrepute, and the court will enforce and make sure that whatever powers that you have been clothed with under the letters of administration will become enforceable. So
you see,
yes,
when you talk of court, my father died. I can tell you straight. When you talk of court, my father, a huge judge, my dad, a huge judge, died. He left a will. My dad, some of his relatives were really interested in coming forward. Some of his relatives wanted to have a tussle with us. Now, luckily for us, I mean, I have brothers and I have people who wouldn't allow, we wouldn't allow it. But for me, we were tough enough not to allow anything like this to happen. But there are loads of families in Ghana where they become weak. It's not that they become even weak, but against their own relatives who profess to love them and all that. Sometimes when you are grieving, you are in shock. These people come, they physically throw you out. That is what, it's not easy. And then you go to court. When the man died, they were watching you. You buried the man beautifully. They were watching you. They were with you. And then a week or so later, you are at home and just people just arrive. What do you do?
Okay.
I mean, tell me, I need practical help because, so you're on the phone calling your lawyer. Is lawyer going to come with soldiers to keep them at bay? How do we deal with this situation? Because it is in Ghana, as it is serious. It is not a matter of speaking English and stopping people from your door. It is serious. And I can give you another example before you even answer, because I can see that you are keen to answer. But I have people on here who are very keen to know what you do, because there are times when their father died. Father dies, not mine. Mine, we dealt with it. As you can see, I'm a big girl, and you can imagine I have big brothers. But this situation, a man dies, one of their uncles moves in the time of the whole throes of funeral situations happen and all of that. And then at the end of the funerals, celebrations and all, this man refuses to leave because he decides he has rights in the house. Then his children and other people start coming in and they all feel they have rights. How do you get them out? What do you do? And in Ghana too, one of the problems we have is wives are very respectful to their in-laws. So in-laws want to take control. What do you do?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
What I'm going to say first and foremost is I agree with you that it's a very delicate situation.
Yeah.
And I will also say there's no one size fits all advice. what I'm going to say may work for some people, but it will not work in other families. Again, based even just on your ethnic background and even where you come from. Some particular ethnic groups may have strong family traditions, okay, which will make trying to take a purely legal approach very difficult. First thing that we need to establish is that there are different types of marriage. Okay, if you are married under the ordinance in Ghana, okay, so this involves getting your marriage registered at the Registrar General's Department, or getting married in church where there's a specially appointed officer to register the marriage, be it a priest or anyone else. Then we also have customary law, which is our traditional form of marriage. Now, under the statute law, we know that marriage is monogamous, one man, one wife. And when you go on the customary law, a man can have other wives, different wives. There are other laws or types of marriages. For example, the Mohammedan marriage, which is the Muslim marriage, which has its own laws governing how property should evolve. For the purposes of this discussion, I will want to assume that you are talking about marriage under the ordinance, where it's one man, one wife. Because again, if you move into customary law, and for example, the person who died in the state has several wives, then the situation can be a bit different. Now, having given this background, I also want to make this point. You know, usually when there's a family situation, the coming events cast shadows. I don't believe that there will be a situation where, as a widow, you are not aware that your family, that your deceased husband's family have an issue with you and are likely to come and take over the property. I'm sure that in the course of planning the funeral and all related events, there will be some disquiet. There will be maybe, let's say, some arguments and some disagreements. This will definitely inform you that there's a high likelihood that at the end of the process, they will be coming for the property. And I'm sure that your family or their family will pick up certain hints. It will be, I would say, it will be an Oscar-winning performance if the family pretend that they love you through the process, agree with you on everything throughout the funeral preparation process, and then all of a sudden, having smiled and laughed with you, they just come and take everything out. There will be comments coming up before. There will be disagreement
even though I'm not a lawyer, that you have not experienced this. You have no experience of this. You may have several experiences of many things, and you are a very big scholar. But as for family wanting your father's shoe and his tie and socks, you have no experience.
So you're saying that there was absolutely there's no disagreement. Everybody was happy. And the moment you finished the funeral, everybody agreed with everything that the widow said.
That is not how it is. Let me give you my experience. My experience is this, and I'll tell you something, that my father's family and all his people, they are highly educated people. They are doctors, nurses, and in fact, it was a doctor leading this charge. And I'll tell you that we had no problem. It's not that we were laughing and talking. No, my father had died. It was a mighty tree had fallen. And so everybody was upset, everybody was confused, everybody was all over the place.
So during that whole period, you saw no intention to take everything away. There was everybody was.
No, there was no talk. There was nothing. I'm telling you that a mighty tree had fallen, and so there was.
It happens.
There
it does
was all
happen.
sorts of. Yes.
It does happen, but it's not the normal. It's not the normal way that things happen. Usually, even with families that that are very close, okay, during that funeral process, there are disagreements that come up. But anyway, let us not lose sight of why I'm here. I'm here to speak about the law, and so I would like to focus on what the spouse and children can do if they find themselves in a situation where they are being thrown out of their husband or their father's property. And I'm saying that because we all have friends who have suffered a similar predicament, I would advise that no matter how deep your loss is and how much you are grieving, or as you put it, the mighty tree has fallen, I still think that it's very important to take steps to safeguard that property for the family by trying to engage the services of a lawyer from the day one. And the reason why I'm saying this is because you will definitely know, especially if there is property to be dealt with, that right from day one, you should even be looking for whether there was a will or there was no will. You should find a way to contact the deceased person's lawyers to find out if there was a will that has been deposited in the High Court, for example. So I would say that it would be a lack of preparedness to not take any steps whatsoever to try and avert such a situation from happening, regardless of those circumstances. And what I'm here to advise, because what's already happened before, I can't address those issues. But I would like to use your medium to advise anybody watching or listening to try and remember that even though you're grieving and you have a loss, that there is a possibility that your rights may be infringed upon. And so therefore try and engage the services of a lawyer as part of that process to begin to put things in place to avoid such a situation happening. Because there are steps that can be taken legally. I do understand that within the family context, there are difficulties. I, for example, now have a situation where a client of mine is has her rights infringed upon by the family. And we've started legal processes to try to rectify that. But halfway through that, she has had to sidetrack because the family wants to disown her because they say in our family, we don't take anyone to court.
Okay.
So, as I indicated before,
that's one of the other issues because
it's always a very delicate situation.
But because the moment you start thinking of taking people to court because you think the law must be, brought into it to sort the matter out, people, that's where the whole family unravels even more. And then it brings you, there's nothing more painful than to be ostracized by your family. And it happens all the time where, as you describe it, your client became sidetracked. Immediately, it kind of stops you in your tracks.
Sure. So, but the best thing is to keep in mind that usually, especially where there are children involved, that you need to look out for the best interests of the children. Because once the entire funeral process is ended, like I say, even if you apply for the letters of administration and you don't do this timeously, what is likely to happen is that by the time you are empowered by the courts to administer the estate, there will be no property left for you to administer.
Exactly. You see, because somebody put in the comment section that these things take so long that by the time you get to that point, everything's gone anyway. They've taken his socks, his tie, and his shoes.
Yes. Yes, so it's important that you first and foremost know what your legal rights are, and that once you know what your legal rights are, you begin the process early. I know that under cultural systems, based on where you come from, there are certain rules like the 40-day rule. So even issues relating to the administration of the estate, letters of administration, and all of that has to be put on hold until 40 days, or even with some people after 1 year, before they can open these matters. And that lacuna, that space, allows family members to begin to take advantage of the situation. But like I said, within a legal context, even the beneficiaries of an estate can go to court and ask the court for an order that the property of the deceased should be preserved, and no one should touch it or try to share it until letters of administration are given. And if this is done, it will help to avoid such a situation from occurring. Yeah.
I've got a question here, and it says, in Ghana, how is the estate distributed for married individuals with children when the father dies interstate? Does the estate pass equally to the surviving spouse and children? What is the distribution? I think that is also very sensitive indeed, and people need to know what the situation is.
Okay. This is the point. The law, PNEC law 111, it spells out how the property should be distributed. So it will be impossible for me to give you those numbers offhand, because it will depend, for example, on the number of spouses. It will depend on the number of children. It will depend on whether they are surviving parents, okay, and so on and so forth. So depending on the situation, the law will spell out who gets what. But I need to state that primarily it's the spouse and the children who get the majority of a percentage of what the estate is. I can't say to you that they get half or a quarter, because it depends on how many children, it depends on how many spouses, it depends on whether they are surviving parents, and so on and so forth. But the law as it exists now is very, very fair, and it's positioned to protect the interests of the spouse, or the spouses and the children. Yes. If you want more details on the percentages, I'm sure that as the host of this show, you'll create an avenue for any further consultation that as may be required. Yes.
Oh no, I'm getting messages now, and people would like to contact you themselves. So I think I will put, if you give me the permission, I will put your contact details inside the messages. There is a whole message stream coming up, and I'll put it down there, and people can contact you straight away.
Okay, sure.
Okay, now Nanajwa has come back. Nanajwa, you keep vanishing and coming back.
I don't know what's wrong with the internet, so Ghana.
Let's hope you stay on long enough to give us, and Kofi is here to help with wherever stage you are in your situation. So where do you want to start?
I want to start with the died intestate. When both parents died intestate, father died first, suddenly in 1972, and mother had the letters of administration. And I recall she ran up and down the law reforms to fight the relatives with Comensa versus Abosumpim, 1973 GLR 18, and won and changed the life for widows. Then she dies 2014, also intestate. And we are told by the lawyers who gave us the letters of administration that it goes to all of us, because father died when we were minors. So mother didn't really do the letters of administration, and she couldn't give what was not.
I'm sorry, my guest has vanished again. I think she's having internet problems, and so we can carry on. So, in view of what we've talked about before, is there a way, what do you suggest is the best compromised way to solve family disputes, or to hold on for a while these whole legalities are being pursued?
I mean, I would say to avoid this, first and foremost, I would encourage everyone to try and put a will in place. That would be the first step.
Okay.
I want to encourage people, particularly because a lot of people assume, and in fact, this afternoon, I was in a discussion with a very prominent client of mine, and we're discussing estate planning. And one of the issues that one needs to take into consideration are that sometimes when you are alive, the children or the other family members will all behave properly, and they will not show you their true character. When you pass away, then things get out of hand, and then all of a sudden, people put their crotchety powers aside, and then they begin to display their true nature. And sometimes, especially when children are married, the influence of spouses can play an active role in the decisions that they take, which may bring the estate into some form of jeopardy. So my advice, first and foremost, would be put your wishes on how your estate should evolve in a will. This will save you and your family a lot of trouble when you're no longer with them. You're no longer alive. And whenever there's no will and the interstate succession law has to be applied, I will urge all those who are beneficiaries of the estate, and particularly the spouse and the children, whenever they get into this sort of situation, do not sleep on your rights. I believe we were hearing a bit of what Madame had to say previously before we lost her, about the fact that her mother couldn't the letters of administration. I think it's very important that whenever you find yourself in a position where you can apply for letters of administration, this should be done timeously. And again, the administration of the will of the estate, whether it's being done under a will or interstate, we have a situation where when you're doing it under the will, usually executors are appointed. Now you'll find that a lot of executors, or sometimes, let me say sometimes, the executors are not in a hurry to wind up the estate because they are somehow benefiting from continually acting as executors. And so instead of winding up the estate within 1 year, you will find that there are certain estates that up to now, maybe 20, 30 years, okay, the executors haven't even vested the property in the beneficiaries. They are still controlling it and getting some benefits from managing the estate. Granted, to be fair to executors as well, there are some instances or some families where it is difficult to vest the property because there are a lot of issues that have to be dealt with. And if you vest the estate quickly, you might find yourself in a situation where the lives of the beneficiaries will be severely affected, by fights and arguments because the underlying issues relating to how the property must be distributed have not been solved. But under our law, you as an executor of an estate, or as an administrator of an estate, you are required to wind down the estate within 1 year and make a report. Okay, you are supposed to make a report to the court. This is a step that a lot of people are not aware of. In fact, I'm not sure that even maybe 10% of executors or administrators of an estate actually make a report at the end of their tenure after they have vested the property in the beneficiaries and submit such a report to the court. Usually, they carry on for longer than they are supposed to, and they never do a report.
Yeah, but should they not be penalized? Because you see, as a lot of people are saying in the comment section, that it takes so long and it drags and drags. Somebody is asking if can the family continue to live in the home of their father while the case is in court. Now, first of all,
I would say no. I would say that that you would have, if the family was not living in the house prior to the deceased passing away. If the case goes to court, I would say that the lawyer should apply for an order from the court that the family be removed from the premises, at least pending the final determination of the matter.
So and what if it's their father's house?
When you say the family, or you mean the immediate family, the spouse and the children. Yeah. The spouse and the children are entitled to live in the property while the case is in court. Yes, the status quo must be maintained. So if the spouse and the children are living in the property after their father has died, then they should continue to live there. If anyone tries to take the property away from them, or if other family members want to come and join and live in the house with them, I'm saying that they need to apply to court to get an order to remove any such persons, and they need to apply to the court to get an order saying that they should be the ones to live in the property pending the final determination of the court case. And I'm sure that if everything is in order, that no court should be reluctant to grant such an order.
I hope everyone's listening, because everyone is interested to know. It affects all of us in whatever stage of our, we are. It affects almost everyone. Some people are lucky and this is all new to them, but the majority of people, even the highest educated people, everyone has family in the village, and the village are watching. That is true. It always happens like that. So anyway, my guest is back, and do you want to continue?
Yes, I'd like to ask at least 2 questions before I go missing again. And mine is, yes, the vesting assent. Can you have an administrator whose husband died intestate given a vesting assent to one of the children?
Can you ask that question again?
Okay. Father died intestate. We were minors, and brother out of the blue says mother gave one of our huge estates to him alone, 24 2-bedroom apartments, to him alone, in a vesting assent while she was alive, but then actually forged her signature while he was at it. So what happens there?
Well, I mean, I can't speak to the facts per se of this matter, but if you're asking me in a general fashion, just because the signature was forged, then that taints the entire process, and therefore, obviously, there are other implications. But I would like to even try to address this issue without looking at the facts of your particular case. What I would like to address is the fact that if letters of administration are applied for by the spouse, okay, and if it's only the spouse who was granted letters of administration, and she has to administer the estate, or he or she has to administer the estate, they are still required to follow what PNDC Law 111 says, unless they choose not to do so. But there must be evidence of the fact that they've actually vested the property, and if in their exercise of their administrative powers, they have acted in a way which is unfair to the other beneficiaries of the estate, being the other children, for example, then the other children have a right to go to court and ask the court, okay, to terminate or to set aside that vesting assent, okay, and ask for the property to be fairly shared, or at least shared according to the dictates of PNDC Law 111. And I'm sure that this will be given some consideration. Yes.
We've lost her again, but if one person says, if it is a family of a few, siblings, where one person says a signature has been forged, but no one else is ready to come on and say, this is a problem and we agree with it, what then happens? Because they all know that there must be some discrepancy, but they don't want to go to court. So in a family of maybe 6 or 5 or whatever, several, only one person is going the court route. What happens there? Because you need backing in many situations, and there doesn't seem to be.
Okay. So let me just say that when it comes to issues relating to fraud, when you entered into criminal law, and the courts are courts of evidence. So what it is that in the court is going to now determine whether there is fraud or there is forgery. And usually there are forensic experts. The courts will refer the matter to forensic experts, typically the police, and they will now conduct an investigation, okay, to find out whether the signature is genuine or it has been forged. So it is impossible for me sitting here now to reach a conclusion on this, because once the matter is before the court itself has a mechanism for determining whether or not a signature has been forged. And if the court reaches the determination that indeed, truly, the signature has been forged, then the court has its own processes. However, if the court does not find that the signature has been forged, then it potentially means that the vesting assent is genuine. However, as I've stated before, even if it is genuine, but it is unfair, okay, it is possible to go to court to ask the court to set aside that process and to administer it in a manner that will be fair to your siblings or to the other beneficiaries of the estate.
I see. Now, another question is, what happens when the executors also die in the process? Because it takes so long, and most times the executor is an uncle, or this or that, or some distance, blah, blah, blah. He dies, and then what happens with that gap? Does the administration revert to the Administrator General, or can another family member of one of the executors automatically become? How does that work?
Okay, so it's an interesting question. It's a situation that I've dealt with a few times.
Okay.
So under our law, when an executor passes away, the administrator or the executor, okay, of that executor who's passed away now steps into the shoes of the executor. So let me give you an example. So let's say A passes away and appoints B as the executor of his estate in a will. Now, B, before winding down the estate and finishing the administration of the estate, passes away. Then, if B has a will, okay, and he has appointed C, okay, to be his executor, then C, who is an executor of B's estate, becomes now the executor of A's estate as well.
Oh,
that is the position of the law. You should always recognize that typically under our laws, there's more than one executor, even though it is possible to appoint a sole executor. In most cases, there are 2, 3 or more executors for the will. So any decisions that will be taken by C will not be acting alone. You'll have to be acting jointly with the executors of A's estate. But that is the position. So you step into the shoes of the executor who was acting before you. That is the position.
I have another question. The question is, what happens if the widow takes, let's say, there's a will. So the widow takes over the property of her deceased husband and then does not provide for the widowed mother of the late the husband. Because
I totally understand. So these are all the situations that were envisaged under PNDC Law 111. And the parents have a share under PNDC Law 111. So a widow cannot take over all the property and leave the parents of the deceased out. If the estate is administered according to PNDC Law 111, then the surviving parents of the estate also have a share in the estate.
Okay, now the other question, this is connected to the question before, the penultimate, which was, if B, your example, if B does not have an executor or a will himself, he dies intestate while being an executor on somebody else's will or issue, what then happens? Who fits in, who gets into that slot?
So the family of B will have to apply for letters of administration, okay, and whoever becomes the administrator of B's estate per the letters of administration will step into the shoes of of B and therefore act as B in the execution of the estate of A.
I mean, one of the questions someone asked me before, and I'm just saying is, this is not even a question for you because you have already mentioned it, that the question was, should partners inform extended families about properties they owe? And I think really your point was people should inform their immediate family about the properties they owe if they are aware that they're going to leave a will.
I think it's very important because in my practice, I've come across families that were not aware of properties owned by the deceased.
Yeah.
And it can be a big issue. Sometimes people just take these properties and sell it, and the family will never know all the hard work that their deceased husband or father or wife put in place. So as much as possible, even if the family are not directly aware, there should be somebody important, if it's the executor or someone, maybe a lawyer, or at least somebody close to the deceased who is aware of these properties who can now inform the family. But it, of course, has to be somebody very trustworthy and of high integrity, because if he or she does not share that information, then the family may never know. Yes.
They may never know. Yeah. In fact, it's also the thing with lending money to people, because if you lend money or you've lent a big amount of money to somebody and then you die, if nobody in your family knows, that's it. The people have taken your money and gone.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
You won't, unless you later on find out. But again, everything is documentary evidence. If you are later able to find out that the property originally belonged to your father, I mean, if it's properly registered, for example, then it's going to be difficult for whoever disposes of the asset to do so legally without doing something which is inconsistent with the law. So definitely, what I would say is share that information if you can with somebody who is trustworthy, and if possible, share it with your family.
You won't believe it, but we've done a whole hour. We've done a full hour and 1 minute, 18 seconds. And we haven't even exhausted the questions yet. I think we have to come back. Also, people want to talk about widows or divorcees. I hear in Ghana now, laws are coming out about divorcees and how much money people share and what happens in marriages, etc. People want to talk about that. So I think you need to come back. Also, don't forget to send me details so that I put it in the discussion box so that people can contact you directly, because people are very impressed with some of your most of your answers and would like to get in touch. The matter of inheritance is such a big thing at the moment that a lot of people need help. One of the reasons why I have a program is sometimes you realize that something that you may breeze by through it because maybe you know the law, understand the situation. Some people don't know or do not know how to start or to deal with it. And people, as you said, people should not lose money or should not lose their inheritance or should not lose anything that is owed to them through other people I use the word tagashi on them just to bully them. Yes. So it's very important that we help each other. And as I said before, my thought for the week is you are your brother's keeper. We all are our brothers. I am my brother. My brothers are my keepers, or whatever, vice versa. And I think because of that, we need to help each other, and especially women, widows, single mothers need help. So I'm very glad that you have offered to come on my show once in a while to help me with this situation.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you very much for having me. I'm always available to help. I think that my primary duty on earth is to serve others. And if there's any way I can help to make life better or easier for anyone, then this is my calling. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And I look forward to coming back here.
Okay, now, because don't go yet. Because we have not been able to get my guest on, Nana Adjoa, on, I have said the bye-byes and everything, and then we're going to continue the conversation to make it a part 2. And so if people want, they can still stay on, because Nana Adjoa wants to say something, but I mean, she keeps going off, and I think her internet connection is not very good. But I'm going to put her on now because she's back. But Mr. Asma, somebody is saying, thank you very much, Mr. It's very enlightening, very, I'm going to put it up on the screen so that you see it. But people are very grateful to this chat. I am very grateful to it, and I am anyone who dares to say, "Oh, my somebody is dead," I'm directing them straight to you. So prepare yourself. Go and get staff.
Great.
Go ahead.
Great advice, yes.
Hello, Narajo. You are now
Hi.
in part.
I'm back.
You are
Yes,
in part.
so I want
two
to talk quickly. Question. I want to ask like 3 questions at once so that I'll get the answer later. When father dies intestate, mother dies intestate, and brothers are saying the estate doesn't belong to father, it doesn't belong to mother, but it belongs to one brother who forged her, I'm not sure I understand that. When they're saying your father's estate is not his and your mother's estate is not hers, but it belongs to a son. How does that work?
So obviously, if you're dissatisfied with that conclusion, and the law courts
But of course, they both died intestate.
Yes, I mean, what you need to understand is that if father died intestate,
Yes.
and this was after, or this was before the coming into force of PNDC Law 111.
Right.
And so let us fast track it to mother dying intestate. Mother
Yes.
inherited the property of father. Is that correct?
We were told by the lawyers, mother was got letters of administration of father's estate for us, the minors, and herself. We were minors.
Yes. So
they
mother
said
she acted as a trustee.
That's non-debt.
Okay. So if she took over the estate to administer it in your favor, then that means that going forward, every action that she took was on behalf of the estate. And if pursuant to the powers she had under the letters of administration, she decided to divide the property to one person only when there are a number of other children. If the children do not agree with this, then they have to go to court to get a ruling that will make sure that the property is fairly and proportionately distributed. That's all I can say. As to the exact facts of the case, because I'm not apprised with it, it would be inappropriate for me to comment on it, because I will assume that this matter may be before a court, and I do not want to prejudice any findings or rulings by this court. Yes.
She's gone off anyway. So did she ask you 3 questions? Because you can answer it and she'll see it later.
No, I think she only asked the first one.
Well, she only asked.
Yes, but I think that just so that you can keep to your time, you can put her in touch with me after the show, and I'll be happy to engage her and see if I can be of any help to her. I think we just have to keep in mind that these are delicate matters, and like you said at the beginning of the show, it's important not to say anything which might malign any of their family members and lead to other implications. So I think that really for the purposes of your show, we should try to keep matters general and not be specific. And that if there are specific instances where advice is needed, that we deal with these off air and in a more private setting.
Thank you very much. Oh, thank you, Mr. Asma. You really are a lawyer, and I'm very, 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 very. And as you can see, you can count the many veries I've said. I'm very pleased that you're on my show, and I'm also pleased that you've offered to come on several times. The next discussion will be on not next week, but the next discussion that we will have pertaining to our community and our issues in Ghana and in the diaspora is going to be about divorce and how the distribution of assets are done for divorced ladies. Also about women in general, single mothers, and how they need help. I think women in general have been put in boxes because society has wanted it so, and we need to bring them out of the box. So
I agree with you.
I'm
I
so
agree
pleased.
with you. And I definitely
Yes.
support women issues and women empowerment issues. I think that the conversation right now is just centered around women. And I find this to be unfortunate. I believe that we should find ways to get more involved in discussions on female issues. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you very much. And I will try and put your details in the comment section so that people can contact you directly. I have two people who desperately want to contact you at once. So, please give them a discount because you promised to give them a discount because they were on my show.
Okay. I'm a very kind-hearted professional person, so no worries about that.
Thank you very much. And
All
good
right,
night,
thank
everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, people, for listening and staying on for the extra 11 minutes. That is very kind of you. We will come back to this topic because, there are many areas of this topic that we really haven't actually we've only just scratched the surface, and we are going to talk about it later. I need to stay in the 1 hour slot that I've got, otherwise I will not be able to publish it anywhere. And this show comes on the television in London on Channel 7 on Saturdays at 7 o'clock. So and it has to be within the hour. So thank you all for watching. Thank you so much. And if you see the YouTube page, if you've watched it already, it's fine. Just click on it and then share it so that other people will watch as well. Thank you. Good night and stay well. Bye-bye.